Good morning, everybody. Not exactly your pump me up kind of music to roll into a video, but I like that song, so, what are you going to do? This is your buddy ChoppoDong coming at you again from the DFS Army, DFS headquarters of the world. I'm going to put together another little video here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Army, talk to you a little bit about what we're doing. I have a whole host of videos out here for our VIPs. That get access to our private content. I just, from NHL attacking slates to controlling your competition to slate breakdowns to, building processes to whatever, to contrarian videos, to things that I've learned throughout the couple of years I've been affiliated with the Army and been a coach inside the site. I encourage you guys to check these out. What we're going to end up talking about today is a little bit more along the lines of hockey and building hockey slates and hockey lineups, because that's kind of where I've settled in. If you are into NBA, you cannot find a better community than we have. We have a new optimizer for the NBA that is state of the art, has just been updated and released, and has already boosted people's bankrolls and given them some pretty high scoring nights. We have coaches. Last night, if you didn't see on Twitter, we had our coach Keith, call out, since Anthony Davis was sitting, call out Terrence Jones, said fire him up across all formats, and Terrence Jones had a career night, 36 some points for cheap. If your provider and your guy isn't giving you that kind of access and that kind of service, I encourage you to check dfsarmy.com out, because really you can see the content and you can see me play around on a computer screen and teach you a little bit here and there, and that's really nice. But what we really bring to the table is real-time discussion and a community of avid DFS players across all sports, from golf to NASCAR to just your main ones: NFL, baseball, NBA, hockey, whatever. Hockey's niche, it's not really a big one. But at any rate, we play them all, and we coach them all. And the fundamentals of DFS don't really change. From once you learn the fundamentals, you can pretty much cross over different sports. We are an all-in-one, one-stop shop, if you will. One price, one membership, and I'll get to that in a little while, but one subscription price gets you access to every damn thing we do. We have ranked players in the sports that we play as our coaches. We have members and regulars that are in there trying to grab you by the bootstraps and pull you up. If there is one thing that I bring to the table when it comes to DFS, I can get the very brand new beginner up and running in very short order. I specialize in contest selection, bankroll management, and the fundamentals of building a sound, competitive DFS lineup across any of the sports. I am not the expert. I'm not the guru that you're going to run to for the little sneak peek type of tip. Like, I'm not calling Terrence Jones out last night. That's just not my thing. That's not how. That's not where my expertise lies. You need Keith for that. You need Kevin in football. You need, gosh, the other guys that, there's so many names that we have that run through the other sports that can help you with that. But if you're wanting to just build a lineup, you want to get better at DFS, you want to stop losing money, or at least slow it down, then you need to find me, and you need to come into the DFS Army, and we need to talk. So today, let's talk hockey. I'm going to try and do this in a couple of parts. There's a lot of information to cover when it comes to breaking down a hockey slate, and you'll see how I can get you up to speed here really, really quickly, and hopefully that encourages you to come in and give us a deeper look. Once again, at dfsarmy.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChoppoDong. I do a lot of talking there now too. So give us a shout. You're going to find in NHL, you're going to find that the over-unders from Vegas generally range from a 5 to a 5.5. That doesn't tell you much in and of itself. Occasionally, you're going to find a 6, and once this year I saw a 6.5. These just tell you the higher scoring games versus the lower scoring games. What you're really looking for, in my opinion, DFS Army sites, I tend to focus on DraftKings right now. FanDuel is very, very similar, but the points, a little different. 12 points for a goal instead of 3 points for a goal on DraftKings. I focus on the heavy favorites. That's where I'm looking. I'm going to roster my goalie first. I'm looking for the biggest favorite, because the win in hockey is huge. It's just like a starting pitcher in baseball getting a win. In fact, hockey and baseball are very, very close. If you like baseball, you're going to understand hockey a lot faster than somebody who, maybe doesn't like either one of those two sports. The correlation and stacking is a big thing. And just briefly, we'll talk stacking for a second here. If I ran this first line from St. Louis, Alex Steen scores a goal. The puck was passed to him by Jaden Schwartz, who was passed to him by Paul Stastny. Then I'm going to get an assist, and a goal off of that line. I'm going to get 7.5 DraftKings points, give or take half a point, and I'm going to fly up a leaderboard when my general target scores 30 to 35 points to hit my 50-50s and my double-ups. 7.5 points is a big chunk of that. Now, the risk there is I'm putting all of my eggs in one basket. If the Blues score 3 goals and they come from Tarasenko and Berglund and Laterra, and these guys did nothing, then my night's over. I'm done. So it's very boom or bust to stack an entire line in hockey. It's a very tournament-oriented strategy, and it's important because in tournaments you want to, if a goal gets scored, I want every piece of that goal that I can get in tournaments. Now, in cash games, I tend to spread out across a couple of different lines. Like I'll take a player here, and a player here, and I'll hope they overlap in the power play a little bit. Like, if I took Tarasenko and Jaden Schwartz, then I've got exposure to 2 different lines, and I've got exposure to the top power play unit. So they're going to share some ice time, and I got the potential for that assist and that goal to give me those points, those correlated stacked points, but I'm spread across 2 lines, which means if a goal happens in, even strength hockey on this line, I probably get a piece of it. If it happens on this line, I probably get a piece of it. So if the Blues score 3 goals and they come off of these 2 lines and maybe another goal comes down here, I've got a piece of 2 out of the 3 goals. If that makes sense, that helps build my floor in hockey. That helps cash more often in hockey. It's not going to win me tournaments very often, but it's definitely going to help me cash in head-to-heads, 50-50s, and things like that. So that's typically my focus. If you want tournament strategies, you need to join, the DFS Army's Slack channels and get the tips from the GPP guys in there, because those guys are really good and they stack lines all the time. I don't do it too often. But back to the matter at hand. When we said 30 to 35 is the target score on DraftKings for hockey, your goalie, for just getting the win, he can give up 6 goals. If his team scores 7 and he gets the win, he gets you 3 points. Those 3 points is 10% of your production. That's as close to guaranteed locked points as you can get. If you can find a heavy favorite, and Vegas is obviously not right all the time, but they're right a lot. And when they say, well, this one's a minus 130 and this one's a minus 200, I'm going to take this goalie over here before I take this one, because the line is a little bit more of a sure thing according to Vegas, who are the experts and study this more than we do. So I want those 3 points. I want that 10%. I want to lock it away, put it in my pocket, move on, and then focus on the players. I typically am going to pay up for goalies. Minus 200 is strong. I generally look for about minus 175, 180 and above as my sure thing. And it's only going to lead me to maybe a couple of goalies to pick from, each night. You want to get cute in tournaments? I don't think you need to. You want to roster Grease here, who's an underdog. Yeah, you get lucky and he wins the game. It saved you $800. $800 in cap space isn't a lot, and you're taking a hell of a risk in betting an underdog. I know you're going to say, but he won't be owned by very many people in tournaments, and that's true. But you know what? With all of these players to pick from and all of these teams to pick from, your differentiation is going to take care of itself most nights, especially on a big slate like 10 games like we have tonight. So you take the goalie, take the points, move on, don't get cute. Anyway, we're going to break down some of these lines in a minute, but let me show you how we find some of these teams, because we're not going to necessarily just focus on the high over under of 6 points here. We're going to go into the team numbers here, the team stats. I use RotoGrinders. Probably won't on DFS Army have our own tools and whatnot. We'll use some of the free tools from around the site and give out the free plugs, because it's a niche sport and whatnot, and maybe someday, but not right now. I go to RotoGrinders. It's the easiest place to find free information. You've seen me use Corsi numbers. You've seen me use scoring chances for and against to indicate high event teams that are going to be doing a lot of shooting back and forth. Another way to look at it is go to Fantasy Point Production. Go to the team stats page in RotoGrinders. Go to earned. Go to season, this season. Go to per game, and sort from highest to lowest. And you're going to find the teams producing the most fantasy points as a team. Pittsburgh, New York, Toronto, Columbus, Minnesota, Washington. These are the teams we're going to try and focus on a nightly basis. They're scoring the most fantasy points. Now, I'm going to go also to the allowed category, and I'm going to see which teams are giving up the most points. And the teams that are playing poor defense, you're going to find Colorado. You're going to find the Arizona Coyotes. You're going to find some of the poor teams in the league on the bottom of the standings. And what you're going to hopefully find on a given slate is a team like Pittsburgh, New York, Toronto going up against a team like Toronto or Arizona. A team getting a lot of points, earning a lot of points, going up against a team giving up a lot of points. Because when you find that, that's just your best indicator. All the arrows start pointing that in the direction of that team's going to have a good night. And that's where we start focusing on our players. Tonight, Pittsburgh plays St. Louis. Pittsburgh is the #1 overall scoring team this season. Now I can check 4 weeks and last week, and I'll do that on another day. But St. Louis is giving up the 9th most points on the season. So we've got a team in the top echelon, the elite of earning points, and we've got them playing a team that is giving up points. That's a good sign. We're going to be looking at Pittsburgh today. And here's how we're going to find their production. We'll go to the player stats or skater stats. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to isolate down to just Pittsburgh. We're going to turn all the other teams off. And we're going to look at the season numbers. And we could look by home and away splits. Pittsburgh's at home. That's always a good thing. And we're going to go by per game. And we're going to look at who on the team, sorting from fantasy points down, who on the team is producing. Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Letang's hurt, Hornquist, Kessel, Sheary, Schultz. We're looking at these are the players that we're looking for. If I want to compare on the salary, I'm looking for about 2/3. So out of 8, I want about 5 to 6 points. He's getting me 5. I want about 4.5, 5 points. He's getting me 4.5. So these guys are bringing value night in, night out. They're going to go through their ups and their downs. It's a highly variant sport. But typically, this is the production on the team that I'm wanting to stick with. I'm not going to roster Hagelin very often. Or Bonino. I'm just not. And then when I go and check these names, Crosby, Malkin, Hornquist, Kessel, Sheary, Schultz, I'll go to the starting lineups page and I find Sheary and Crosby, Malkin, Hornquist. There's Kessel on the 3rd line, which is pretty rare. And then, Schultz is, wherever Schultz is, I know he's on the power play unit. It should be indicated a little bit better in this. But you're going to find your top 2 scoring lines are typically where it comes from. We'll go over here to Columbus. Your top 2 scoring lines are typically where all your production comes from. It's also the guys that are sitting on the power plays. And you're going to want to correlate a little bit in cash games. Maybe you would take, Foligno and, say Atkinson, if you could afford it. Because you've got exposure to 2 lines and that first power play unit, like I mentioned over here with St. Louis. But we're going to try and do this with Pittsburgh tonight first and foremost. And then in cash games, I'm not probably going to stack too much more. If I wanted to look at other teams and other good situations, which I already did this ahead of time, Columbus is in a pretty good situation tonight. They score the 5th most points, and the New York Islanders give up the 4th most points. That's a good sign. We're going to go down maybe to Minnesota and Dallas, the last game of the night. Minnesota scores, I had it actually as 3rd most points, so I don't know where this number is coming from. This is actually 5th or 6th. On the season, and Dallas gives up the 6th most points. Here, Dallas gives up the 10th, or they score the 10th most. So Dallas is pretty powerful in their own right. If Minnesota gives up points, then we've got potential for a shootout. If Minnesota scores them and gives them up, and Dallas scores them and gives them up, we've got a shootout going both directions. Does that make sense? I tend to do this about once a week. I write all of these teams down, rank them, and then I go through all these categories. It takes me about 30 minutes or so, and then I've got it kind of for the week. These numbers aren't going to change. Next week, San Jose is not suddenly going to be number 3, and they're not going to suddenly be number 25. They're going to be somewhere in, this range of where they were. So it's good to kind of keep an eye on these numbers and see who ebbs and flows, but you're not going to need to pay too much attention. You certainly don't need to do that every day. I'm about to run out of time, so what I'm going to tell you on part 1 here is if you're interested in getting more information on the DFS Army, what you need to do if you become a member is you need to go to dfsarmy.com, sign up for a membership, and put in the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, because that's going to kick 20% off of the subscription price. There's no contract, there's no commitment. You can play for a month and then move on. But I think you're going to find the value is there, and that 20% discount is going to knock like that $20 down to like $16. And it's grandfathered in for the life of you being a member. So I actually encourage you to go check that out. I'll be back with part 2 here in a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about identifying these players and kind of where we're going tonight. All right, guys, so go check out the site while we're waiting for part 2 to upload. All right, take care.